Abortion has been arguably the most polarizing, heated, and controversial civil rights issue since 1973, when abortion was legalized in the U.S. There is so much passion on either side of the topic, and seems to be no middle ground and virtually no humane conversations. So much anger and so much hate. In the midst of it all, we truly believe that love is the answer. Instead of pro-life or pro-choice, is it possible for us to be pro-love? Is it possible for us to love both the mother and the baby? Maybe the answer isn't either or, but rather both. I have my personal convictions. You have yours. We're all so different.
What's fascinating about abortion is there's one thing that you cannot deny. Before the abortion, there is a life. After the abortion, there is no life.
Hello, friends. We got to get into some very sensitive subject at this moment. So I want to put a few words out there of warning. Number one, this is not about politics for me. Although I will make reference to politics, and I'm not afraid of sharing my political views. There's a channel for that. This is not the place for it. Number two, this is a matter that needs to be discussed. Christian and non-Christians are involved in the discussion. And I think as God's commandment keeping people, we need to say something. Number three, the Bible speaks about it. It's in the Word of God, and I'm going to show it with you. I'm going to share that with you today. So I hope you get these 3 warnings, and then we're going to dive into the video. Number one, let's begin. This is Whoopi Goldberg from The View, and she is having a meltdown over this issue of canceling the child in the womb, code word. All right, I want you to hear what she's saying. We're going to engage with that argument. And we're going to come back and check out a few more clips. Listen, we have a number of things going on here today. We have a number of videos. We have some documents and so on. We have to go deep into this subject. It's at a point now where we can even say this is not a matter that concerns us as a church. As a matter of fact, it does concern you if you happen to be a Bible-believing Christian. Let's take a listen.
1,000 weeks, whatever, how many weeks, it's nobody's business. It's you, your doctor, and God. That's who you have to be conversational to. And it's not mentioned in the Big Ten. I'm just going to say.
No.
In the Big Ten, it is not mentioned.
The commandments?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
She said it's not mentioned in the Big Ten. It's not mentioned in the Big Ten? What do you mean it's not mentioned there? So what you choose to do with the child is not mentioned. She's going to explain to you later on why she says this. And again, let's not filibuster. Let's allow her to say what she needs to say. And I found that already to be very confusing. But let's keep going.
You know, because I figured God was pretty clear. Here's the stuff that'll make your life better on earth. Here's the thing. Don't lie, because you don't want people lying to you. Don't mess with somebody's wife, because you're going to be mad if they're messing with yours. Just, you know, common sense stuff.
Say, thou shalt not kill. They believe that.
Yes, well, here's the thing.
Now, listen to her logic. All right, 10 Commandments is for the purpose of making your life better on earth, which is like true, but it's much more than that. But nevertheless, it's a character thing. It's transformation of character. It's about a change of heart. But nevertheless, listen to her logic why she's going to say it's okay for a parent with the child, with God. I don't know how God gets into these. I don't know how God gets included in discussion, right? It's okay for the parent to cancel the child in the womb. It's actually a right. And now listen to the logic.
I think thou shalt not kill cannot be used as the block, because we allow wars all the time.
Yes, we do.
Now look at that. She's using one wrong to cancel something that is also wrong. So that's that double talk. But let's keep listening.
Because crusades
We allow the death
were
penalty.
about
Yeah.
all these things.
We allow guns.
Yes. So there is some conversation to be had here. So you can either thou shalt not kill for everybody.
Yes.
And everything. And everything.
is so illogical because she's not understanding the difference between actually intentional, you understand, intentional murder, or from the idea of defending a country or fighting in war. And I'm not saying the Crusades were all good. There were some crazy stuff happened during that time, which I'm totally against. But it's the fact that she's using wrong to support another wrong. You understand? It's like, you never heard the statement that two wrongs don't make it right, and that's exactly what she's doing here. But the logic is so illogical. Like I said, I've warned you, this stuff is gonna get crazy over here. But I got more to share with you, because now in the second part of the video, my question is to ask, since we are talking about canceling the child in the womb, what actually happens when the child is in the womb, has been removed, right? How does that happen? What does that look like? And I will say to you, a good testimony to listen to, and I've spoken about this doctor before, is Dr. Anthony Levadino. And what he's about to share with you is what he's done many years of his life, became a Christian and repented, and now he's testifying against it. And I want you to put the picture in your mind. And again, this is not to gross anybody out. When people are talking about this issue, I don't think they realize what actually happened. They don't actually take into consideration the life and the autonomy of the child. They're not actually considering the pain, and they don't put themselves in the shoes of the child, right? And if you were to think of it that way, and then understanding what actually happens, then maybe the perception will change. But now watch how this doctor describes what happens doing the canceling the child in the womb, and he's going to explain that to you.
I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to get right to it. Second trimester D&E abortions perform between roughly 14 and 24 weeks of gestation. Your patient today is 17 years old. She's 22 weeks pregnant. Her baby is the length of your hand plus a couple of inches. And she's been feeling her baby kick for the last several weeks, but she's asleep on an operating room table. You walk into that operating room scrubbed and gowned, and after removing laminaria, you introduce a suction catheter into the uterus. This is a 14 French suction catheter. If she were 12 weeks pregnant or less, basically the width of your hand or smaller, you could basically do the entire procedure with this. But babies this big don't fit through catheters this size. After suctioning the amniotic fluid out from around the baby, you introduce an instrument called a Sofer clamp. It's about 13 inches long. It's made of stainless steel. The business end of this clamp is about 2.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide. There are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. A D&E procedure is a blind abortion, so picture yourself introducing this and grabbing anything you can blindly and pull, and I do mean hard, and out pops a leg about that big, which you put down on the table next to you. Reach in again, pull out an arm about the same length, which you put down on the table next to you. And use this instrument again and again to tear out the spine, the intestines, the heart and lungs. Head on the baby that size is about the size of a large plum. Can't see it, but you pretty good idea you've got it if you've got your instrument around something and your fingers are spread about as far as they go. You know you did it right if you crush down on the instrument and white material runs out of the cervix. That was the baby's brains. Then you could pull out skull pieces. And you have a day like I had a lot of times, sometimes a little face comes back and stares back at you. Congratulations, you just successfully performed a second trimester D&E abortion. You just affirmed her right to choose.
So I played this video to show you when people are talking about canceling the child in the womb as if it's a positive thing. There's a way Pastor John Bradshaw explains it, and I really love the way he addresses this matter. And what John Bradshaw argues is that before the canceling the child took place, there was a life. After that happens, there is no longer a life. And I want you to hear a segment of that, and I'll put a link in the description below. I plan on doing a whole reaction video to this, but take a segment from this.
What's fascinating about abortion is there's one thing that you cannot deny. Before the abortion, there is a life. After the abortion, there is no life. That's one thing that we can agree on.
So that is the point of my argument here. And again, I want you to hear what else is being said. And just in case you are skeptical about any of this and you still have your doubts and you are on the defense, there is a movie out there. I'll put a link in the description below. I'm going to make sure I put all the links. This is called I don't say it so much because the channel will eventually, it's one of those topics that when you talk about online, the YouTube moderators just get crazy about. But nevertheless, you get it. Canceling the child in the womb. So this is the movie, and I would encourage you to check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. It is done by the LeBrand fam, and it has about 5 million something views. So this tells you everything you need to know. There was a bill that made to the House. It's called Born Alive. You get it. Survivors Protection Act. So this bill, shockingly enough, was for the purpose of providing care to the child if the practice to end the life had actually failed. So if the child happened to make it afterwards, they were voting on the floor for the protection of the life. Majority, actually all Republicans voted for this bill to pass, and 210 Democrats vote against it. Like I've said, I'm not here for the politics, but I want you to think about the logic. 220 Republicans voted for this to pass. 200 Democrats vote against it. Only 3 Dems voted for it. It eventually did pass. But I want you to know from the political standpoint, from the political sides of this issue, how much tension is happening. So even the people who are supposedly leading the country are unable to make sense of this thing. Now, the argument from Whoopi Goldberg, I'm going to come back to that. And again, this is the bill. Born Alive bill passed by Republicans will require care for the infant born alive after failed abortion. This is after failed. We're not even talking about preventing it. 220 to 210. This is wild. So we have one side of the political aisle who will advocate for the canceling of the child by any means necessary. Now, this is a discussion between a pro-life and a person who is pro-choice. Think about the logic of this discussion, what is being said here. And I want you to reason with your mind. This is the nature of this thing and how pervasive of a thing it is. That's why I say, as a church, I don't know how we can stay quiet about this. I don't know how any Christian can be neutral about this. Watch.
I just want to read you this poster that I have because I hear a lot of pro-lifers say that life begins at conception. Mm-hmm. So my poster reads, "Life begins when you understand living women matter more than potential babies."
She thought she made a good argument. She thought she just made a really good argument. But watch how this ends.
What is it?
What do you mean?
If it's a potential baby, what is inside of a woman?
It's a fetus.
Is it living?
No.
How can it grow if it's not living?
It's that simple. The argument is over. But let's keep going. The argument is already over. Watch this.
Actually, that's like saying if an acorn is a tree.
When does the fetus become living?
That's actually a good question, but that line...
Yeah, of course, because you don't know it, because it's living. It's living.
How about you let her speak?
You're fundamentally denying science to validate your opinion.
You actively deny science, ma'am.
How am I denying? What science did I deny, Darby?
Okay, so let's look at some posters over here.
But
you don't have to be here.
I need you to tell me what science. You just made an accusation that I denied science. What science did I deny?
That it's a child inside of you. It is a clump of cells when
I'm a clump of...
It's a clump of cells. It's not a human being. It's not a child, potential baby. So the language you are hearing is the people who are for the canceling of the child in the womb. They are seeing the child and they are determining whether the child is living, whether it is a life worth living. You think about that. We think about that.
Cells. What makes me different?
That you were born. You were born.
So you don't. What you're arguing is that anything that is not born is not valuable of life.
I did not say that.
It's subjective. So when does a child or fetus or clump of cells, whatever you want to call it, when does this clump of cells or fetus become living?
When it can sustain.
Even after it is born, it still needs the help of the parent. The child is still dependent on the mother for care and life and everything. So what exactly are you saying? This is a matter of location. In the womb, we can do whatever we want. Outside of the womb, hey, it's a human beings. Really.
Its own life.
But when is the sustainability? No, when is sustainability?
21? About like 30 weeks to born, like 24, 30.
Because how do you sustain life? Like my newborns aren't sustainable. You can't just have a newborn and they just live on their own, right?
Right.
They're not sustainable. They need help and assistance to survive.
All right.
So is a newborn not worthy of life? Is a newborn not worthy of life?
I do have one thing to say to you. How is it that when my mom was in college 30 years ago, she was protesting the exact same thing that me and these wonderful other women and men on this side have been protesting? How is it? Why?
That's not an argument. Anyway, I don't know what that has to do with the discussion at all.
Why are we still protesting? Why are we still having to talk about this issue? It is a basic human right.
Here's the question, and we're going to come back to this idea of basic human right. Is it a basic human right to actually cancel the child that you don't want? Is it ever okay to use human right as the logic for, you understand, removing the unwanted among us? Is that actually a right?
To have an abortion, to have a choice.
The reason we're still having the question is because some people don't want to accept the natural consequences of heterosexual sex and be inconvenienced by another human life and want to selfishly choose to end human life in order to have their whims met. That is why you're still arguing.
That's why we're still arguing that thing. And she nailed it really nicely, because the truth is, people are choosing to be irresponsible about this matter, right? We spoke about this, and we spoke about David Asherek, who also made a similar argument. Like, no, that's just the result of decisions that we are making.
It should be illegal, should not be allowed to kill a child, whether it's in the womb or out of the womb. And they say, oh, well, the child is in the mother's belly. How did it get there? If it just happened randomly, okay, you could make a case. I know this is going to be hard for some of you to believe, but the latest studies, the latest medical studies out of top universities, Stanford, Harvard, and others, are confirming that there is a direct correlation between sex and babies. It's crazy. I know, right? It seems to be that sex produces babies. So, okay, I got it. You have a baby in your uterus. You don't want that baby. I get it. I understand that. But you didn't know? Did you not know? Did you not know about these studies out of Harvard and Stanford that have confirmed the connection between sex and babies?
So once you make your decision to do what you want to do, and then you want the state to support it, and you want everybody else to get behind it. But I'm asking the question, what exactly are we doing? We are removing the unwanted. We don't want it. We want to get rid of it, right? But you got to think about that before you make the decision. There are some politicians, okay? There are some politicians, when they were asked the question, and I said this video has a few excerpts and stuff. There were some politicians when they asked the question, what is your perception when it comes to this thing, canceling the child, okay? And especially from the left, from the Democrat side of the issue, I want you to hear their logic. And there's also another discussion about even canceling the child. You understand? Ending the life even after birth, to the point of birth. That is actually a thought as well. So Take a listen to this.
Do you support any restrictions on abortion?
I don't. I've always believed...
Even in the third trimester?
I believe that choice is between a woman, her doctor, and a God if she prays to one.
Wow. By the way, this is the governor of Pennsylvania where I live. I just want you to think about what he just said here. That's just so wild that he said this. But anyway, goodness. No restriction whatsoever.
Are there any limits on abortion you would find appropriate?
I don't believe so, no. I believe that is between a woman and her physician.
You have probably heard more and more Republicans, including Donald Trump, who just over the weekend accused Democrats of supporting abortion rights up to and after birth. Can you be clear about...
What does that mean, after birth, abortion after birth? It's made up. It's a political...
Well, can you just be clear about what limits on abortion should be?
It's a political thing. People are not seeking abortion.
But what is
the
policy? What should it be?
The policy, it's not up to Donald Trump or me. It's up to you, to women, that have to bear that responsibility uniquely and distinctively. And the reality is, it's a canard. It's a political frame. It's total BS. And it's exactly where they need to go because they know they've gone too far.
But there has to be some kind.
Right now, do you believe there should be any limitations on abortion set by the government? And you have 60 seconds.
By the way, the answer you're about to hear from, I think it's from Georgia, is as a politician. Actually, he is, well, I think it's Warwick, his name is. I'll put the name up there. I forgot his name. But nevertheless, he is ordained minister. Okay, so I want you to hear the answer from a minister. I'll listen carefully to what he says.
I think that the women of this country and the women of this state woke up one summer morning and a core protection that they've known for 50 years was taken from them by an extremist Supreme Court. And I stand where I've said I stand in the past, that a patient's room is too narrow and small and cramped a space for a woman, her doctor, and the United States government. We are witnessing right now what happens when politicians, most of them men, pile into patients' rooms. You get what you're seeing right now. And the women of Georgia deserves a senator who will stand with them. I trust women more than I trust politicians.
May I respond?
Very quickly, Mr. Walker.
Yeah. You know, it is, and I heard about him. I heard he was a neat talker, but did he not mention that there was a baby in that room as well?
Yeah. Can we talk about that? Anyway, we're still not done because Whoopi Goldberg is gonna give us some more of her logic because the logic keeps getting worse. So I want you to hear what she had to say. So Whoopi Goldberg is still gonna continue to explain to us what she meant earlier by the 10 Commandments. Okay. Now take a look.
Can I just point out that normally after the 9th month, the baby is born.
So after the 9th month, the baby is, because she's responding to something Mr. Trump said, former President Trump said. So after the 9th month, the baby is born. Okay. So before the 9 months, since he wasn't born, is it still a human being? Is it still a baby? Are you hearing to the lot? Are you listening to the rhetoric?
You do also know that it is against the law, passed quite a bit in, much more than you're aware, but nobody's doing that. I'm not sure I understand.
By the way, there's been cases where it's actually been done after the child is born. In cases 9 months, a little bit before the child is born, there's been cases where it has actually happened. Okay, so you know. And if you want evidence for that, I can find it all for you as well.
And you're bragging about this.
Yeah.
50 years I've had this right. And here you've snatched this right out of my hands. You've taken my right as a woman to make decisions about myself, and you're bragging to me, and you want me to give you my vote? And
she's arguing against pro-life, right? She's saying it is her right to remove the child that she doesn't want from the womb. That is a woman's right. And I'm thinking for myself for a minute here. Is it a right to kill? Is there a right, a political right? Does the Constitution guarantee such a right? And the people who are confused about this, and I've explained this before, you should not be confused about this. And if you happen to be a Christian, you should know what you're talking about. When you look at the 10 Commandments, right? The first table is about worshiping God. The last 6 about our loving our neighbors as our friends, right? As ourselves. One of those commandments is actually pro-life. Thou shalt not kill. That's pro-life. Is it a choice to just say, I can get rid of the ones that I don't want whenever I feel like it? Isn't that a violation of the 10 Commandments? Yes, it is. And again, let me share this with you because I think it's worth we have to keep talking about stuff like this and I think the church has to be bold and strong and also compassionate at the same time, but there should not be confusion about this. So let me share this with you just to show you what's going on here. Let me full screen this thing. I had preached a message called The Dark Trinity, and I was speaking about the return of the gods and so on. And I got the perspective from another minister who was sharing it. And I studied the matter myself, and I realized this man really had a good point. Now, here's the thing. There were 3 different gods back then that were dominating among the pagans' world. It was Baal, Ashtaroth, and Molech. Baal, the possessor, the enchantess, and also the destroyer. Molech is the god that we are dealing with right now. Molech is the god of violence, is the god that is, what the argument is from the biblical perspective is that Molech loves bloodshed of any sort, right? Loves human sacrifices. And we're talking about shootings in the United States and many other things. We're talking about the type of music that are really plaguing our society today. A lot of rap music, drill music that are promoting violence and crimes. This is a very Molech type of thing. And we are told furthermore about Molech is the darkest of sins. We are talking about that. And the sacrifice of human beings. That's what Molech really enjoyed. The sacrifice of children, which was the thing that Molech, the god of Molech, really enjoyed. The sacrifice of children by their parents. Even the Israelites had to deal with Molech. We are told in 2 Kings 23, verse 14, Molech, you might see this picture, and this was a very common practice. And there used to be fire underneath him here, and the child will be deposited in his hands. Some children will survive, some will not make it. And oftentimes this was done by the parents themselves with the help of the priest. In 2 Kings 23, verse 14, we are told that he defileth Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. So this was the practice. It still is today. When people are saying canceling the child is healthcare, I'm not sure how much care and how much health is left when the child is canceled. Anyway, so the issue here is when exactly is this normal? In Romans chapter 1, verse 26, we are told, for this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for unto their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. So there is so much of that destruction going on. The spirit of Molech is manifesting among us. And that's what we are listening to. And when you notice how many children have been sacrifices on the altar of Molech in the name of reproductive right, Planned Parenthood, and so on, my rights and my choice, pro-choice. What you are looking at, friends, is the old worship of that which is going on today. So here is the thing. CDC reported 620,000 yearly. We're talking about 620,327 in 2020, and also 629. So these numbers are consistently increasing. there's been a lot of pushback against it. But keep in mind, if this amount of people were being put to rest yearly, what will the outcry be? But this is happening to children, and it's almost like nobody cares. And I love this quotation here. It's from Brian Fisher, president of the Faith Clinic Chain Human Coalition. He said, when people think of genocide, they tend to recall the heartbreaking image of the Jewish Holocaust, or perhaps more recently, the plight of Serbian Muslims during the Balkan wars. But canceling children in the womb, however, is the worst genocide in history. And the argument was to be, when there was a black man, they say, oh, that's not a person, that was my property. When it was the Jewish, they consider them to be not a person, right? And today, and there used to be a time when those who were handicapped as well, especially during the Nazi era, they used to just get rid of them, people that had mental issues and everything. They used to just say, you know what, we don't want these people around us. They can't add any value to life. Let's just get rid of them. In 2018 today, what we are hearing is that the child is not a human being. Is there anything different between those three eras? None at all. It's men defining what life is. That's all it is. Matthew 24, because of iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So that's kind of where we are, friends. That's kind of where we are. We are in a time when Isaiah says, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, and that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. This is something you need to think about, pray about, and talk about. And I would say, as a Christian, you cannot be neutral on this. And the movie that I have recommended, and I'll say it again, you need to go watch the movie. There it is right there. And I'll put a link in the description below. If you are skeptical, you think I'm just tripping, you need to go listen. Not just doctors and mothers and parents and women who actually were about to commit the crime, were about to commit the act, and had their hearts changed and transformed, and now they're testifying of that experience. Is beautiful. This is human beings talking. This is not some political jargon and nonsense. This is dealing with human life here. And I think it's worth taking a listen to. This is one of the movies that actually helped me really see the light for what it actually is when it comes to this issue and stop being neutral. Anyway, friends, thank you so much for listening. I want to hear your thought and perspective when it comes to this matter, whether you stand, like and subscribe to the page, click the bell icon for more. Let's have the conversation below. Check out the links below as well. Have a good one. Bye.